time has come for everyone to clean up their own backyard.
One of the common themes from the right wing after a tragedy like Buffalo or any mass shooting happens is the simple fact that they keep saying, well, there are several common themes actually. Not doing anything about it, not the thoughts and prayers, speeches. But the one common theme to it is they always say, what if there was another gun in there? They could have stopped this. Another gun could have stopped the shooting. I just spent about 45 minutes before I posted this video arguing with a guy on Facebook, pretty much blaming the victims of the Buffalo shooting. I wish I could show you the photo copy of what he said, but he decided to block me and delete all of his comments. Now, there was one more gun in there. One of the good guy, quote unquote good guy with a gun that got killed, that was one of the victims. And that man's name is Aaron Slater Jr. He was more than just some security officer working at the market where this tragedy took place. He was a former police officer who worked in Buffalo, who was a cop in Buffalo for decades. So, obviously, he has training. But the straight up inhumanity to all of this is the fact that the right wing wants to keep screaming at the top of their lungs that, what if there was one good guy with a gun? This could have been avoided. No, it couldn't have. Because there was a good guy with a gun. And unfortunately, the shooter, the scumbag shooter, had body armor on. So unfortunately, he didn't stop him. And maybe if he did, and he wasn't wearing body armor, maybe the situation would have ended differently. Before the right wing, especially the scumbag that I was talking to on Facebook, to say that if there was one more guy with a gun, practically blaming the victims, all because someone didn't stop him. When civilians hear gunfire or see a burning building or anything like that, they're going to run to get to safety. They're not police officers, they're not soldiers. They're just people who went to a store and a scumbag tried to murder them and murdered 10 people. And for this guy on Facebook to say that basically he's basically saying it's their fault they're dead. No, it isn't. The responsibility for those deaths lie on the people who murdered them. All of them. Now, the right wing might think that's tough, that it's powerful to stand up against them. It's not. If any of those people had stood up against those people, it would have been because it was the right thing to do. Not because they're trying to be heroes, not because they think they're Rambo or whatever the hell these right-wingers think they are. Because it was the right thing to do to try and stop him. And Slater, who was a retired cop, he did what he had to do to save the lives of the people, try to save the lives of the people in that supermarket, in that market. He had training in law enforcement and he knew what he had to do. He didn't succeed, unfortunately. He and 9 other people were murdered. And for this guy to scream and huff and holler that it's the victim's fault shows to me that he agreed, not one of two things. Either he agrees with the shooter and he sympathizes with the shooter more than he does with the victims, or he's just blaming the victims because they didn't have a gun the way I see it, this is the reason why things like this keep happening. Not because there's a good guy with a gun nearby, because of people like this with the mentality that a gun is going to solve all their problems. The shooter had body armor on. He was protected by body armor, and it didn't stop him. The police probably could have gunned him down all at once. They didn't do it. For this man to say this shows to me that he's blaming the victims. It's their fault they're dead because none of them were armed to protect themselves. That's the wrong way to look at it. They're dead because of the actions of one man pushed by a racist theory, pushed by other madmen. And the madman, the shooter, it's over for him. He's going to prison. Frankly, he deserves the death penalty. And I don't think any sane person would disagree with that. Or at the very least, life in prison. Either death penalty or life in prison. Any sane person would say one or the other. The people who pushed them to do this need to be punished. Tucker Carlson, I'm talking about you. Republicans, I'm talking about you. But to say that this is the fault of the victims, not because they were bullying this guy, the shooter, not because they made fun of him or they pushed him over the edge. This guy is saying it's their fault because they weren't armed. I don't know who this man is personally. I could post I got a photo of his face and name from his Facebook page, but I'm not going to post it on here because I have too much decency too. Much more than this guy does. But I will say this. Don't ever blame the victims of situations like this. It won't end well. And have some damn humanity. These 10 people were murdered. Have some humanity. And don't blame them because they were murdered. Blame the shooter for being screwed up in the head, for being a racist, for listening to racist crap that pushed them over the edge. CTP, know the truth. God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.